My name is Bobby Gahary. I'm an ear, nose, and throat surgeon by training, but most of my free time is out in the yard, in my garden, and I have become increasingly interested over the last couple of years in propagating figs so that I can eat all of the figs. So I want to go through my process on how I do propagation, and this is what I'm doing now. This is my third or fourth year doing this, and it's what I've learned the hard way. And after talking with people who know a lot more about this topic than I do. So, what I use right now are these 4x9 inch um, grow pots that I got from Greenhouse Megastore, and they go 16 to a crate that I also get from the same place. And then I'll show you my soil medium and how I get the fig cuttings ready, where I end up storing them as they're propagating them. And over time, hope to add more videos about the various varieties that I'm interested in, other tricks with other kinds of plants that I'm growing. And I'm excited. So let's get started. So one of the things I learned the hard way between the first couple years I did this and then last year is the first couple times I did this, I used the fig pot method where everything is enclosed inside of a bag, and so it's hard for pests to get in there and lay their eggs. And then last year I did the method I'm showing you now, but a month in I started noticing fungus gnats everywhere. And this product, Mosquito Bits, it's not a chemical, it's actually a bacteria that eats the larva. It's called Bacillus thuringiensis, and it's very effective. And so what I'm doing this year is I'm preparing the water that I'm mixing everything with to initially to root with this product already embedded in it. And so this is a 2-gallon bucket of water, and the proportions is 4 tablespoons of this into each gallon. So I'm going to do 8 tablespoons here. And then I just do this throughout the year. Every time I water now, this gets put in. And so I just use an organza bag as like a sachet to make it easier to get the stuff out. And then you just plop it in, let it marinate for 30 to 60 minutes, and then you're good to go. So the ingredients that I'm using, they're pretty straightforward. It's just HP Pro Mix, and I use 80% of that mixed with 20% of the perlite. I'm lucky enough to live close to a place called Concentrates Northwest, which is this awesome gardening supply store in Milwaukee, Oregon. And they have different coarseness levels of perlite. And so the one I use it's coarse. It's intended for propagation versus other ones that are just made for continued growing in pots. And you could use Sunshine Mix number 4. I like the HP Pro Mix a little bit better, but that is the setup in terms of what it is I'm actually using. Okay, so what I've got here is my wagon, and in here I have 16 gallons of HP Pro Mix and 4 gallons of the coarse perlite. So it's completely dry. One thing I notice I like a little bit about HP Pro Mix more is the texture of it is a little finer than what I found with the Sunshine Mix. The Sunshine Mix seemed to cake, like be really rock hard in the bag when I got it. So you know, this is just something you stir around initially, get it a little bit more incorporated. I do 8 gallons of the Pro Mix and then 2 gallons of the perlite, and then layer another 8 and 2 on top of that just to make it easier to distribute the perlite around. Although, keep in mind, I mean, the HP Pro Mix, that's high porosity, so there's a lot of perlite in there already. But that's kind of well incorporated. And the next step is really a very important one, which is moisture. And so this can take a while, especially if I don't turn on the water. And this is because you don't want to add too much water during the rooting process, or it'll rot. So I'm going to add a bunch of water and keep mixing it in, and then I'll show you the end result of when I know that there's been enough moisture added. And at the end, I will add just the 2 gallons of the mosquito bit water that's marinating right now. So I'll see you here in a little bit. So I've gone ahead and added the water, not only the water from just my hose, but also the 2 gallons of mosquito bit water. And the question many people have is, how do you know enough water is enough? First of all, it takes more than you think. But the easiest way to determine this is you just grab a handful and you want to squeeze it. And the ideal is that when it is let go, it's still holding its shape. So there's enough moisture to hold that clumpful together without having water seep between your fingers when you're squeezing the thing. So that's the easiest way of knowing how much water actually will be enough. And this sort of moisture level will keep the cuttings happy for at least 2 weeks or so, depending on your heat. You might need to add more water, and I used a water gauge in the past. That was very frustrating, and then Eric, my buddy down in Salem, basically said, "Well, just pick up the pot, and if it feels light, then you need to add more water." And that actually seemed to work the best. So that's what I do now. This is one disadvantage of having open pots is that stuff will evaporate a little bit more than the fig pot method. So that's one disadvantage. But the advantage is you get a much more robust root ball, because I ended up losing 10 or 20% of the figs I was up potting when I did the fig pot method. So this is just it's a give and take. There's not really one awesome technique. I don't get 400% success like many people claim or whatever it is. So this is just one way I do it, and the moisture level here has been easy to gauge that way, and so that's how I do it. One other thing that I just want to go through is how much soil to put into these pots. You don't need to fill it up. This soil is expensive. And so what I typically do is once I have my um, mix ready, I don't want any air pockets. And so I really tamp it down. And I've got about, I don't know if you can see it, about 2/3 of the pot full. And that just you just don't want the cutting to shift. And if you don't do a good job with the tamping down part, then there's air pockets there, which could result in no contact between soil and the cutting, and then really not a good end result. So that's kind of what it looks like, and I do that 120 times and get ready for the cuttings, which is the next step. So I'm going to go through how I prepare my cuttings, and again, this is just the way I've had success doing them. This is a cutting that I named Yard Mystery because the person who lived here before us called this a Lotarula fig. It's a giant 10-foot tree, and it is most definitely not a Lotarula fig. So I'm going to grow them out and try to see if I can figure out what they are, because they never ripen in the ground. So I'm going to put it in a pot in the greenhouse and see if I can get it to ripen to figure out what it is. Or I will just lop off all the branches and use it as a rootstock for grafting. But what I basically do is, ideally, I would like to get 3 nodes into the ground, into the soil. And so there's a node there, there's a node there, there's a node there. 2 is fine. I've had some less success with 1. But I know about where I'm going to submerge this. And so then the first thing I actually do is I take 1-inch paraffin tape. This is perforated, so it's easy. And I'm going to wrap everything that's not going to be in the soil. And this is just to prevent transpiration and moisture loss. And all I'm doing is going all the way around, stretching this as I go. And usually with one piece, I can get through it. This one I can't, so I just tear off another one just because I want to get all the way up to the top and on a raw edge. That's where it'll lose a lot of the moisture. So that's what it looks like in terms of the top part. And again, this is debatable. Some people hate this practice. I have found successes. I start at the node and I just scrape off the bark. And I'm not going for like a very deep cut. It's just to expose the cambium. And then I rotate it and I do the exact same thing and I rotate it again, and any part that I know is going to be buried, I'm just scoring it. So again, not real deep cuts or anything like that. And then what I do is I use Clone X. I tried it the first year with rooting powder. I couldn't get it as much, coverage. I'm just using a paintbrush, and all I'm doing is going through and painting the entire surface. So, I know some people are like, "Well, it's gonna rot, and don't put it on." And I say, if it's rotting because of Clone X, you put too much on, and you didn't let it air dry. Because if I plop this right in, yeah, it's moist. It may have a propensity to rot. But what I found is that if you leave this dry, it takes maybe 5-10 minutes for it to dry, and I just go and prepare my whole crate worth of cuttings. By the time I come back around, I am ready to plop these in the soil. So to me, that's how I do my cuttings, and then they go right into the soil medium at that point. So I wanted to go over my garage setup. And so what I use, this is a rolling rack that was a rolling shelf from Costco. And then each of these, all of these components are from Greenhouse Megastore. These are the 4x9s that you saw before. So there's 16 to a tray. This is the TR6 tray that holds 16 of these. And then they go on a giant tray so that if I water them, it doesn't leak down. And then I have my thermostat back there set at 78 degrees. And then the advantage of this system is that I have a cover here that will come down when I want it to be in the dark, and then I've undermounted these grow lights, and so basically, I don't have to really move anything around. Once these are ready to see the light, then I just flip on the switch. So I get 6 racks. I have to do this one tomorrow, this empty space tomorrow, but 6 racks of 16 each. And then, I mean, the light is pretty bright. You can see here, this is another one that I have, a couple of little figs I bought from Brian Melton. And so this is where the next kind of set of figs go once I empty my wallet and spend as much as I can within reason at Harvey's Figaholic sale in a couple of weeks, whenever that gets mentioned. So that's the setup right now. It seems to be working really well for me. When I want them to go into the dark, I unhinge this, and this is a cover I got from Amazon, and so it goes, its zippers closed, so it keeps all the heat inside, and it's been really nice as well. So that's my garage setup, and we'll see what happens in a couple of weeks. If we look real closely, this first top left rack I actually started about 2 weeks ago, and we're starting to get some little buds here as well. So I'll probably move these over once they start to leaf out in maybe 7 to 10 days over to the other lit rack right now, while the rest of them are catching up. So that's my setup. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, just leave them down below.